Hey Froggy friends, Kirostyle here. Happy New Year! Thank you so much for joining me here on the stream. Welcome in everyone. Kieran, congratulations on being first. Willful, welcome in. Sai, it's good to see you. CB, hello, hello. Yule, thank you so much for dropping by. Luke, welcome in, welcome in. Aru, hello, hello. Ash, thank you so much for dropping by the stream. Hope you guys are all doing well today. Hope you are enjoying whether it's New Year's Eve where you are or New Year's. Hey Johan, hello, hello. Good to see you all, and I hope you all had a fantastic 2024. Today's stream, we're going to go over all the games we've played on stream in 2024 and ranking them according to how well I enjoyed them. And as you can see here, I have my tier list from last time. So this tier list has all the games we've streamed on this channel from 2021 to 2023, so we'll add to it and use our current games here as kind of like a benchmark for where to put our new games. And feel free to tell me what your favorite games were of this year, or what your favorite games you enjoyed on this channel were, or let me know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. I think this is kind of a nice chance to go back and look at what we've done on the channel during the last year as well. Also because 2024, I don't know about you guys, but it feels like 2024 was really long and also really short at the same time. Like, some of these games, like, oh, that was 2024? Like, yeah, we played it back in, like, January, February, March, but in my brain, I'm like, I thought it was last year, but it wasn't. So, it'll be kind of interesting to go back and look at some of these. And I've been hearing a lot of other people talk about their favorite games of the year, and some of them I've heard about, and some of them I haven't, and some of them are, like, on my radar to play in the future, or maybe not. So it's kind of neat to see what other people think as well. Also, it's just kind of nice to go back and kind of, you know, remind ourselves. And if anyone's new to the channel, this is also kind of a nice place to kind of see all my games in one place and be like, oh, Kiro played this game, maybe I should go check that one out because I'm interested in that game. Because I have a lot of videos and it's hard to sift through them all, unless you're going through like the playlist page or the sorted categories on my front page. So these are the games we've done this year, and, well, these are the games we've done in the past. At the bottom, I have the ones that we've done this year. So these are the games we've played this year. There's, I think, 38 of them or so, give or take. So we'll find out where they fit on our list and kind of go from there. Hakaze, welcome in, and Cole, hello, hello, Happy New Year. There's also going to be, I think, some of the games on this tier list from before, I might shuffle around because my opinion on them has changed a little bit, or I feel like I need to shuffle them around to kind of, like, rationalize logically how some of these games fit in, at least from the way that I enjoy them. So we'll make some adjustments as we go. Now, this will not include games that I did not play on stream. So, like, for example, Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail came out. I didn't stream it, though. And also, Final Fantasy XIV is already on the tier list, so that wouldn't make sense. But we also played, like, Final Fantasy XVI The Rising Tide this year, but Final Fantasy XVI is still on the tier list from last year, so I'm not going to re-rank that one as something separate because it's part of a game that's already existing. So games that got expansions are not going to be on here. But for the most part, I play most of my games on stream. There's very few games I play off stream completely, other than maybe, like, Granblue Fantasy, which I play on my own, or when I play Final Fantasy XIV on my own. I play most of my games on stream nowadays because I think it's kind of fun to archive them and look back and see what my experiences were. So most of the stuff here is going to be stuff that you guys have seen or is available to be seen. This will also include games I played on other people's channels. So I played a few series on Kieran's channel, for example, and had a lot of fun, but they are either on his channel or some of them aren't even on YouTube because we didn't save them, which is also fine. I'll talk about those as we go. But welcome in again, Froggy friends, and Happy New Year. Hope you guys have a wonderful, productive 2025 and a nice fresh start, and set some goals for yourself, and have a lot of luck with that as well in your journeys of self-improvement. Okay, so whenever I do these streams, it's hard to tier list some of these games. So what I'm going to do, I'll start with the ones that are easy to tier list, like ones I know that I really liked or disliked, and then I guess from there, the other ones will kind of figure out where they slot in. So first of all, I was looking back at my old tier list, and I was like, okay, the S tier ones, like I think S and A plus tier and A tier, I think those ones are pretty solid. I think the order of the games on the tier list does matter. So I'll put the ones I like more ahead of the ones I didn't like as much within the tier. But once we get to A minus, B plus, B, a lot of the order, they're all pretty close. So it's kind of hard for me to decide one over the other. But I think with the upper tiers, the order is very important to me. So I was looking at this and like, yes, you know, I love Final Fantasy 14. You know, it's an MMO, a lot of stuff to do. They're constantly adding to it. Spider-Man 2, I love that game so much. I had so much joy playing that. But like, when you look at this first S tier, you would think, oh, these are Kira's favorite games. And for the most part, that's true. But I really enjoyed Final Fantasy 16 on stream, and it was a lot of fun. But the fact that it's number 3 here, I wouldn't say it's my third favorite game. So I think I need to move it around a little bit. I think originally, if I looked back, the reason why I put Final Fantasy 16 over the Great Ace Attorney, because I love the Great Ace Attorney 1 and 2, is because Final Fantasy 16 has a little bit more replayability for me, because you can go back, you can try different challenges, play the way you want, while, you know, Ace Attorney is more like a linear storyline. So I put 16 above it, but now that I've kind of settled a little bit, and also we went back and played the Rising Tide, I still love the Great Ace Attorney so much. Like, the music's so good, the characters are great, the story's great. Even though it doesn't have as much, like, quote-unquote, like, gameplay or replayability, I think it's still, like, pretty up there. So I feel like I have to move Final Fantasy 16 back just a bit, just behind the Great Ace Attorney, just because I feel like Great Ace Attorney just has such a hold on my heart more than 16 does. 16 was really fun, though. I think I had more fun with 16 than Xenoblade 3, so I'm going to keep it above Xenoblade 3. Basara has to stay there. Basara is so much fun, because there's so many different playable characters, and they're just so zany, and the gameplay of that game is so fun. So I'll keep Basara between Great Ace Attorney and Spider-Man 2. Hey Timbit, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. So my favorite game of the year, no secret, is Astrobot. I loved Astrobot so much. Not as much as Great Ace Attorney, but I really loved Astrobot, and I'll tell you why. Astrobot is basically just a big love letter to gaming. It's just about fun. And I think when I was playing Astrobot, I was pretty much smiling like widely from start to finish. It's just such a fun, enjoyable game. It has so many fun environments. The music soundtrack is just so good. I keep listening to the soundtrack over and over again, and it's just so good. Every planet you visit is unique, and all the upgrades you get never feel overused, because you get the upgrades maybe in one level, and then you come back to it like 4 or 5 levels later, and you're like, oh yeah, the Froggy Fist, I love these. Like, they don't overuse them, so it always feels fresh, and even when they do, it's a new way of using it that seems just innovative. And the environments are so fresh and full of life, and the gameplay was just fun. Even if you don't really get all the homages to all the other PlayStation franchises, like me, I only understood maybe about 40% of the PlayStation references, and even among the 40%, maybe half of those were games that I actually played. But even then, it was nice. Like, the cameos aren't like in your face. They don't take themselves too seriously. Like, they're fun. They poke a little bit of fun at themselves. Even like serious characters like Kratos and Pyramid Head, they treat with like respect, but also a little bit of fun. And Astro's just so cute. The puzzles in this game, like, they're not hard. They're just fun. And the game does such a good job of scaffolding you. Like, it'll teach you how to play the game without egregious tutorials. Like, they'll teach you one little trick, and then you'll be like, oh, okay. And then later you'll see it, and you'll be like, oh, I know how to use this here. Intuitively, without the game having to tell you. Like, that's really good game design. And the fact that they keep updating the game and putting like all these free DLC levels, like, they're free, like, they're not even paid upgrades. This is such a good game, and definitely holds a special place in my heart now. And like, a lot of people, like, this game was a lot of people's game of the year, and a lot of people didn't like that it won game of the year, which I find is, you know, totally fine as well if it's not your thing. But for me, it was just such a good time. Such a good time. Definitely recommend Astrobot to anyone who's played it. I think the only thing I don't like about Astrobot, which is kind of hard to say, but the only thing I don't like is that it's just a short game. So for some people, I can see, like, if you pay money for a full price game and you know, you only get like somewhere between 10 to 20 hours out of it, maybe you might feel it's not worth your money. But, and I totally get that too. But I think I had so much fun during that playthrough that it was just great. And it makes really good sense of the DualSense controller. Like, I don't usually like using the controller, like tilt controls, the touchpad controls, like the haptic feedback. Sometimes it feels like a gimmick, or sometimes it feels like, or having to blow into the controller's microphone. Sometimes that's just kind of annoying, but this game makes such good use of it, and not like egregiously so. So I think they did a really good job with the technology as well, kind of pushing it in that direction. So yeah, those games are just really, really fun. Hey Juan, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, I'm glad a lot of you guys really enjoyed Astrobot too. It was really, really good. That being said, you know, Astrobot is not the first game in the Astro series. We played Astro's Playroom as well, which is the game that comes before it, which is a free game that comes with your PS5. And it was also really fun. Didn't have as much as Astrobot, but it was very vibrant. It was very fun. Great music, a lot of references. Astro's Playroom is a shorter experience for sure. So I don't think Astro's Playroom is not going to be an S rank. It's going to be, I'm not even sure if it's an A rank or an A plus. Maybe it's more like an A, I think. I think I definitely enjoyed it more than Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think this would be a good spot for it here. I did enjoy Astro's Playroom quite a bit, but maybe not as much as some of these other games. Mostly because it's just really short. I think I'm going to put it here for now. Oh yeah, Astrobot also had really fun boss fights. The boss fights were really cinematic, and I was very surprised how cinematic those boss fights were. And like, they had a decent level of challenge. Like, the game itself overall is not like super challenging, but it's enough challenge to keep you interested. And yes, there's also the challenge levels, but even as far as the challenge levels go, they're not like frustratingly bad like some other games, for example. Like, they're still challenging, but they're not like pull your hair out challenging. They're just kind of like, okay, I gotta lock in and concentrate for like, you know, 20 to 30 to 40 minutes, and then eventually I'll get that level down. So even then, Astrobot has a little bit for everyone, I think, when it comes to platforming, because some people like that challenge, but some people also like to just be able to take it easy and have a good time, which is usually where I fall when it comes to these things. Let's see. Another game I really enjoyed this year, which is not technically a new game, Ace Attorney Investigations 2, is such a good game, and I think I have to put it right behind the Great Ace Attorney. I love the Ace Attorney series, but not all the games are like the best, I think, especially when they were early on, still trying to find their footing. Ace Attorney Investigations 2 is really one of the peaks of the series, in my opinion, because if you played the game, all the cases tie together really, really well. And I love having that overarching story. And the characters have such good development. I really like even some of the characters that are introduced in this game. Like Gavel, for example, I really love her. Fender as well, really good character. A lot of these characters had really good development, even though they were new to the franchise, and even characters that are long-standing Ace Attorney characters like Edgeworth and Gumshoe also get a lot of really good moments in this game. It also just kind of feels like a celebration of the Ace Attorney series. There's a lot of NPCs that we've seen before, and they come back for a bunch of cameos, but also a fresh new take on the character in the way that they're integrated in the story. It just kind of feels like a fun ride. Not quite as much as Great Ace Attorney, because Great Ace Attorney I like because it's kind of its own thing. I really love the characters in Great Ace Attorney. The music in Investigations 2 is good, but Great Ace Attorney has phenomenal music. It's hard to compete with those. But if you love Ace Attorney and you haven't tried Ace Attorney Investigations 2, it is a phenomenal game. So I have to put that up here. The story is just so good. I can't emphasize enough how good that story is. That being said, Ace Attorney Investigations 1, of course, came out with the bundle. And replaying it, I still like Ace Attorney Investigations, but it's definitely not as good as I remember it. I think I have to put it down in like A-. Where would I put it in A-? I think here kind of makes sense. And I'll tell you why. When Ace Attorney Investigations first came out, I was a little bit hesitant about it because it doesn't have the courtroom scenes. And in Ace Attorney, the courtroom scenes are kind of where all the action takes place. That's kind of where all the fun stuff happens, all the great reveals. And because it didn't have that, I was a little bit hesitant. How are they going to do this? And long story short, like, they made it work. And I actually really liked Ace Attorney Investigations 1 when it first came out. It was kind of the first game in the Ace Attorney series to have a little bit of an overarching plot among all the episodes, even though some episodes have it a little bit more than others. But a lot of the other Ace Attorney games at the time, they have like a overarching plot that only covers like the first episode and the second episode and maybe one in between. But this was the first one that had an overarching thing. Having replayed it though, recently, the cases aren't as good as I remembered. They're still good, and it definitely sets the precursor for Ace Attorney Investigations 2, but it is still... they're still finding their footing with it, I think. And so I think an A- tier is still pretty fair for it. I think didn't quite strike me quite as much as the story of like 999, for example, or To the Moon. But still pretty fun, I think. Hey Leon, welcome to the stream. Happy New Year, thanks for dropping in. And Lace, is good to see you. Welcome, welcome. My fellow froggy friend. We're just tier listing some games that we played this year. So, okay, so we've done I think some of the easy ones out of the way. Astrobot, Ace Attorney Investigations 2, plus Astro's Playroom, Ace Attorney Investigations 1. Were there any that really stuck out to me other than those ones this year? Some of these other ones are kind of hard to pick out. So you'll notice when I tier list the games, I also have special tiers at the bottom here. Like there's a tier here for party games, because party games are hard to rank, I find, because you enjoy them because you play them with your friends. And the games of themselves can be compared to each other, but it's kind of hard to compare them to single-player games. So I have a special tier for party games. Let's put some of these in here. So I think Jackbox is still, of course, I have one spot for Jackbox, but Jackbox is actually a whole bunch of games. So it's kind of hard to compete with that. And also the fact that it's very easily accessible. You can just play it from your phone. I've been playing a lot more Marvel Rivals lately. You guys know, it is just a fun game. I didn't play it on my channel just yet. I did play it on Kieran's channel, although we will be playing Marvel Rivals tomorrow as like a community thing because you guys voted. But it's fun because the art style is really, really cool. I love the way the characters are drawn and animated, and the way they animate straight into like the splash artwork is super cool. All the homages to other Marvel things like the MCU or the comic book stuff is really, really cool. I don't usually play hero shooter games. I tried playing Overwatch for couple weeks when it first came out, and I just couldn't get into it. But Marvel Rivals is a bit different for me because, well, first of all, it's third person. For me, that's huge. I don't really like first person games that much. Secondly, there's a lot of characters in here that are melee only. So even though it's a hero shooter, a lot of the characters don't need shooting, and I'm not really great at aiming, and I don't really like just playing ranged. So having the option of doing like melee characters is really, really fun. I was a bit scared going into it at first because games that are purely PvP are kind of hard sometimes because, I don't know, sometimes I don't like the pressure of letting down my teammates, or sometimes like, you know, you get the games where you get completely steamrolled, but then you get the games where you, like, it's really, really neck to neck and you barely win and it feels so good and you're learning a new character, or you get, like, you pull off a really cool highlight. That just feels really, really cool. And so I'm excited to play more of that. So right now that is kind of at the top of my party games list. Is just really fun. And I consider it a party game because it's basically all just PvP. You can play with just computers, it's just not the same. And they're still updating it, and they're going to add more characters and skins and stuff in the future. I'm only sure it's going to continue to improve. So that was really fun, I think. Lethal Company. We played so much Lethal Company this year. Not always on stream, but I had a lot of fun with this game. And I think part of it is because the idea of like a co-op horror game is always really fun. Different people react to horror in different ways. You can just kind of be silly and goofy with it if you want. You can play it more serious and like scream your head off running away from things. You can mod it with all these like other things to let more people play, or have other monsters or other unexpected things. I had such a good time playing it with Kieran and Jason and Chris that we did it multiple times. Not just on stream, but off stream as well. It was just a really fun game. I think where it kind of falls behind is because once you kind of see everything in the game, it's hard for you to find new things and get spooked by them. unless you dig into the world of mods and adding more things. So like after a while, the novelty kind of wears off, but I think it's still really, really fun. So I won't put it above Mario Party, because I think Mario Party is still just timeless fun. And I still love Goose Goose Duck, because I love deductive social games. So Lethal Company was fun for this year. On a similar note, we also played Content Warning, which is kind of like Lethal Company, but not quite. And, you know, at the time, playing it, it was fun. It was still pretty new. It was a big thing with a lot of streamers. A lot of them were playing Content Warning at the time. But I think the problem with Content Warning we found, at least, was most of the time when you're playing Content Warning, you're kind of incentivized to stay together as a group, which is fun. But in Lethal Company, you can kind of split up and do your own thing, come back together, and sometimes that adds to the spookiness and also some of the funny moments that you get. Now, that being said, when we played Content Warning, it was about a month after it came out, and I'm pretty sure after we played it, they continued to update it and add more and more things to it. So I bet if I went back and played it now, there'd be a lot more stuff that would probably increase its ranking here. But at the time that we played it, not that it was bare bones, but it just didn't have as much stuff in it. It was kind of fun figuring out what all the monsters did, because we were new to the experience and just goofing around. But I think it does fall behind Lethal Company just a little bit. So Content Warning I'm going to put right over here. Hello, Moo. Welcome to the stream. And hi, Medi. Thank you so much for dropping by. It's good to see you too. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Let's continue ranking the party games just because we're here. Overcooked 2. Man, this game, I played Overcooked with some friends before, and it's been a while since we played it. I don't remember it being that stressful before, and also it really hurt my hand because keyboard and mouse really hurt for it, but it didn't have controller support unless you play it on a console, but we were playing it on Steam, and I don't know, it just wasn't. I definitely think Overcooked 2 is just not as fun as Played Up. Played Up is just more fun to me. But I think it's definitely better than like Gang Beasts, because Gang Beasts is like silly fun, but it's also janky on purpose, while Overcooked 2, like, you know, it plays exactly the way it's supposed to. But it was like very also mentally taxing. We played it only for like, what, 2 hours on stream? And we were also tired at the end of that. It felt like we've been playing for a lot longer. So I think Overcooked 2 fits in right around there. Chained Together. Chained Together was fun to do as a group, but as with any game where it's just like rage game, climbing game, it does test your patience a little bit. And the fact that we were, you know, playing with people that were across the world also made the ping a little difficult to coordinate. So Chained Together, I think it was a little bit more fun than Bread and Fred. I think Bread and Fred was like a little more hard too, the difficult, because you have to do all those maneuvers. While Chained Together is more like, can everyone time their jumps together properly? But it is a game that if you're playing with people, it does get very mentally taxing after a while. I think if you're like, after we finished playing it, Chris went back and played it by himself, and he finished the whole thing in like an hour or something like that. But with like 4 people chained together, it was very, very there are some parts that were very difficult. So it was a fun experience, but it's not. I don't think any of us would go back to it again together. It was a time. So I'm gonna put it closer down here. Less for just a fun time and more for like a challenge time, I think would make more sense. Hey Angora, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. Happy New Year, Happy New Year. What other games do we play? Oh yeah, Project Unknown. We played this one. I almost forgot about we played this one until Kieran mentioned it today. We played this one on his channel, and I did not save the VOD for it. But if you don't know what this is, it's kind of like Phasmophobia, but it is also like an indie kind of smaller game. And I like the ideas that they had. Like every character that you played as had a special ability, and there were like tasks that you had to do, and there were different maps, and there were different like types of ghosts that would do different things. And I haven't played Phasmophobia before, but I understand how it works. And this kind of felt like more fun than that. But the game itself was a little janky. You know, you could tell they were still working on it. Some of the things need a little bit of smoothing out. Instructions unclear at times. I have to put it closer to the bottom of the party tier just because as an experience, it wasn't as smooth. but I think it has potential. I think it has fun stuff in it. And like I intentionally didn't really save the VOD for it because I just didn't think if you watch it, it's just a lot of us figuring out the game and like very messy, and also like things on the screen not really appearing the way we want, like things clipping into each other constantly and being too dark and we can't see anything. So that's why it's not on the channel, but I still wanted to put it here because we did play it. So I think that's about it for the party tier. Oh no, Ultimate Chicken Horse. Ultimate Chicken Horse was actually really fun. Actually, I really like this game. I think I enjoyed it more than Lethal Company. If you don't know what this is, it's like a game where it's like a platformer, everyone picks an animal, you pick the course, and then every turn everyone like has to put down an obstacle, and your goal is you want to try to get to the end of the game or end of the level, but you also want to prevent everyone else from getting there because you don't get points if everyone reaches the end. Very, very chaotic, but very, very fun and very quick to go through each level. I think each level was like 10-15 minutes, so quick turnover time. I think that was a really fun game to play with other people. I think I enjoyed it more than Lethal Company. So Ultimate Chicken Horse, fantastic. I would like to play that again. I also added a new tier for this time. There's a new tier here called Demo Only. I was going to call it Unfinished tier, but I feel like Demo Only is more fair. Now, for the first time ever this year, there are games on our channel we didn't complete. I usually complete the games that we play on this channel, but this year we actually had games I did not complete, and that's because I only played the demo, and then I just didn't feel like I wanted to buy the full game. So I had to create this tier because it wouldn't be fair for me to rank those games among the others. So they're going in the demo tier. In fact, I feel like maybe I should move the demo tier up here, because special and party tier are kind of their own thing, but demo is almost like I didn't enjoy this game enough to buy it. And that's almost lower than a C tier, but also unfair to it because I didn't get the full experience. Hey Lork, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. It's good to see you. Welcome in, welcome in. Happy New Year. So this year we played Emio the Smiling Man demo. And hey Light, welcome in, welcome in. Happy New Year. Emio the Smiling Man is like a visual novel detective game, and I was interested in it because it was a mystery game. It was a detective game. And honestly, the demo was very generous. It gave us 4 chapters, and those chapters were a lot longer than I thought. But the game didn't quite capture me. I think the premise is cool. The idea of someone going around and like murdering people and leaving like his MO was like he carved like, oh no, he didn't carve smiles on them. He put like paper bags on their heads and put like smiles on them or something like that. Something a little bit, slightly less gruesome. But the game itself, for some people really liked this type of thing, but for me it was too much of a slow build up. It was like there's a long time where like it'd just be characters recapping what was happening, just saying what they, what happened and recapping it again, or just like very boring conversations. And I know that this game is like a continuation of an old series, the Famicom detective series from like the 1990s. So I understand that they were kind of hearkening towards that older style, but for me, it was kind of like there were some sections that just felt too boring, like not enough plot progression, characters, not enough personality. I just couldn't get into it. I'm still keeping an eye on this game on the eShop because it is a Nintendo game, so it's not like on Steam, to see if it ever does go on sale. If it goes on sale, I might buy it and finish it, but I don't want to play full price for a game like this right now. It just wasn't interesting enough for me. But the art style was nice. I think the characters, the fact that they like their mouths move and their characters move, they almost look like live 2D. I think it's kind of cool that they did that. They didn't have to. I feel like they went that extra tier. So I'll consider going back to it, but I'm not planning to. The other game we did not finish was ReYNATIS. And this is an RPG, and I was kind of looking forward to it because the art style looks really nice. The art itself is beautiful. The characters look beautifully drawn in like watercolor and stuff like that too. But playing the demo, it just wasn't really that fun. Like the battle system wasn't that great. It had interesting ideas. The graphics, I don't usually want to hark on graphics, but the characters, they look great in the art, but in the graphics of the game, they just don't quite come to life. And so I'm glad I played the demo for it, because otherwise I would have bought the game and not really enjoyed it. So for now, it's just going to be stuck in demo land. for now. Okay, so I think we've done most of the rankings down there. So for those of you joining in, I've already ranked. Again, these are all the games I've ever played on stream being ranked, and then I'm adding the ones from 2024. So we added Astrobot and Ace Attorney Investigations 2 in S rank, and then I also put Astro's Playroom in A rank, and Ace Attorney Investigations 1 in A- rank. Those were easy choices because I felt so strongly about those games, and I really, really, really enjoyed them. Now we're getting to the part where these are the games that I enjoyed, but not as strongly, so it's kind of hard to pick out where to go. Here's an easy one. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about this game. So naturally, I gotta put it above regular Shin Megami Tensei 5, although that is a little bit misleading, and I'll tell you why. So, Shin Megami Tensei 5 was a fun game. If you're going into it not knowing much about SMT, and you're expecting something like Persona, obviously you're going to be let down because it doesn't have the social aspect and the time management section of Persona. But as a battle system, it's really fun. It's basically like Pokemon. Like, you're collecting these demons, you have a little bit more control over what their movesets are and what they do. I really like that. The strategy for some of those bosses was really, really fun. The story, I think, was a little bit lacking, but SMT has never really been about, like, super character-driven stories. Now, SMT 5 Vengeance is basically SMT 5, but they have a new story route and a couple new features. So they actually took down SMT 5 off the eShop, and they stopped selling it. So you can only really buy SMT 5 Vengeance now, unless you go out of your way to get the original. That being said, obviously, this game, Vengeance, includes everything from the first game. So it has all the stuff from the original game, and more. So naturally, it's better than the base game because it has more stuff. That being said, however, when Vengeance came out, I think the way they advertised it almost sounded like the new story route would be completely different. It sounded like the new story route would turn everything upside down on its head and completely, change everyone's roles and the way that you see the world. And it didn't really do that. The new story has a lot of overlap with the original. So, like, there's entire sections that you play through, like the first section of the game, where it's exactly the same as SMT5 base game. And I'm kind of like, well, when do I get to the new stuff? All right, right? Because at the beginning is when you choose your route. So it took a while for it to pick up because it was like, well, I'm just playing the same game again, except I'm not carrying over my data. So on that note, it was a little disappointing. In the end, it was still fun, though. The new boss fights were really fun. They had really good music. They had really good strategies they had to use against those bosses. Very well-designed battles. But at the end of the day, it's just extra SMT5 stuff without really anything new. So I think that, like, what I told people is, if you played base game SMT5, I don't really think you need to play Vengeance unless you really, really liked it and want to play more. If you have never played SMT5, then yeah, go ahead and play Vengeance. You'll enjoy it. But if you paid for the base game, I would not spend your money buying Vengeance because most of it's the same. So on that note, on a personal note, I think I enjoyed my playthrough of SMT5 more than the SMT5 Vengeance. But from, like, a logical point of view, SMT5 Vengeance is better than SMT5 because it has everything the base game has and more. It's the definitive version of the game. So I think that's kind of where my distinction kind of lies. But yeah, it's like, put a footnote on that, right? That's kind of what my takeaway is here. Put a footnote on that. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is a hard one for me, and I'm gonna have to put it here next to Remake, but it's a hard decision for me, and I'll tell you again why. FF7 Remake, or Rebirth, was a really long game. It was super long. There was so much to do in that game, which is both a blessing and a curse. Because on one hand, it's like, okay, you paid money for this game, you want to get your bang for your buck. There's a lot of stuff to do, and if you're enjoying it, good on you. Yeah, have a good time. Have more content. On the other hand, when you're going through the game, sometimes it's like, there's a little bit too much to do here. It's like, I feel a little overwhelmed, and sometimes I just kind of want to progress the main story, but I also have all these side quests to do, and I know that if I don't do the side quests, I'm going to be under-leveled for the main story, and I'm going to need to grind, so I kind of have to do them even when I don't want to. And some areas had like way too much side quest, because like I would have a stream where, okay, I'm going to finish the side quests and then continue the main story, and I would spend the whole stream just doing side quests, and it would take me like 5 or 6 hours to do all the side quests for one chapter, which is really long. And sometimes it'd just be like me running around getting lost because the world is so big. Hey, QT Rayma, welcome to the stream. Thanks for following me and being a froggy friend. So on that note, there were times where it felt frustrating. So I do like the more linear approach that Remake took, and also Remake was a shorter game. It felt more concise. I mean, I still have grievances about the fact they're taking FF7 and splintering it off into these 3 games and stretching it out at times where sometimes it doesn't feel like they need to. But I will say that in Rebirth, there were more playable characters, there was more to do, and that kind of gives it an edge to me over Remake. But it's kind of hard to say. I think it depends what I'm in the mood for, really. The battle system, too, I like the battle system in both of these games, but some of the boss fights feel kind of frustrating because it feels like they're not really tailored for the battle system. Like, oh, quickly, you need to do this in a certain amount of time. Oh, but you need to build up your ATB bars, or like, you have to get from this side of the battlefield to the other in a certain amount of time, but your character moves too slowly to do that. So there were definitely times where it felt like the battle system didn't quite work with what they wanted. But the boss fights, at the end of the day, a lot of them felt very epic. And when you finished it, you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. That required a lot of my energy, but I pulled through with tenacity and strategy. And that feeling is really good. So I won't say that I dislike these games. Of course, I'm still putting them in A rank, but there were definitely things that I didn't quite enjoy, and there were definitely things that I really enjoyed. So it's a little hard for me, I think. Where should we go from here? Now, okay, this one's a tough one for me, but I think I'm going to get it out of the way. Metaphor, ReFantazio. This was a tough one for me, and I mean, if you guys watch my playthrough of it, you will understand why. A lot of people really like this game, and I understand why. I think this game has a lot of good stuff in it, but me personally, there were things about this game I really enjoyed, and there were things about this game I really did not enjoy, and I think almost to the point where the things I didn't enjoy started to overtake the things that I did. And because the game, I think the pacing is not super great, it would definitely just be like, there would be moments of like really, really, really good, and then there'd be moments of like really, really, not to say bad, but like underwhelming. And I think sometimes when you have long periods of time where it's more underwhelming than interesting, then it kind of forms more of a negative opinion on you. It kind of gets to the point where it's like, I don't think going through the dips is enough to overcome my hurdles for enjoying the good stuff. Let me find a place for it on the tier list first before I start yapping off more. I think I have to put it somewhere in like lower A- or upper B+. Honestly, I know this is gonna upset people. I think I have to put it in a B+. Yeah, that feels right to me. But like upper B+. So there's so many things I have to talk about this game, and when I finish this game, I think I yapped for like an hour or an hour and a half after about the game. So if you don't know what it is, it's a new IP. It's an JRPG game from the creators of Persona, and it shares a lot of similarities with Persona. In fact, to say that it shares similarities with Persona would be an understatement. It's almost just verbatim, it's Persona, really, except it takes the battle system from SMT, which is similar, but not quite. And some people might say that Metaphor does Persona better than Persona. I disagree with that. I think Metaphor did Persona worse than Persona, and I think that completely depends on what you enjoy about Persona and which parts of it you find enjoyable. For me, personally, Metaphor, I think the biggest problem for me was the pacing. There were long stretches of time where it was just a lot of cutscenes and people repeating things and saying things that weren't really that interesting. And then there were some moments where like really interesting things were happening and gameplay. But when it comes to the pacing, I have to look back at the game and also say, like, it takes you a really long time to get to, like, the first actual dungeon, for example. And then after the midpoint of the game, there isn't really any dungeons until the final dungeon. Like, there's a long stretch from, like, 50% progress through the game to, like, 90% progress through the game, where there's, like, no story dungeon for you to go through. And that felt really weird to me. And at the beginning of the game, like, one of the things I love about Persona is time management, juggling, you know, your dungeon crawling and your social links and all that. This game was like, at the beginning, there was like nothing to do. It's like they gave you too much time to do the dungeons, and there was not enough stuff to do outside the dungeons. And then by the end, it was like too much to do. It was like you had like a long period of time and a lot of things to do, and that was still not enough time to get it all done. It felt like the pacing was uneven. And that's kind of my biggest complaint about it, really, was the pacing. And I think that kind of changes your overall experience with the game as well. My second problem with the game, and again, this is something that people disagree with, which is totally fine, was the story. And I know this game got nominated for, and won, like, Best Narrative Story of the Year, but for me personally, I think the story had a lot of potential, but it had a lot of gigantic plot holes or oversights. And normally, if there's a couple plot holes, I'm not someone who can, like, I can overlook it. But to me, when I was going through this game, there were just such gigantic, gaping plot holes, multiple ones of them, that would really hamper my experience of enjoying the story, and would also kind of take me out of the experience. Like, it was hard for me to suspend my disbelief when there were just gigantic problems that no one in the game was addressing at times. And also the game tries to write in some humor, but the humor just never hit for me, personally. I don't think they did a good job. When they do Persona, right, they do include a couple bits of, like, humorous sections that are kind of funny, and sometimes, usually those do kind of hit with me. But in this game, it was like they attempted a couple attempts at humor, and they just never hit the mark, and they didn't do it enough. So, and the characters, I think, individually in Metaphor were good, but they didn't quite reach the heights of other games that I played. I think there were so many more opportunities for them to do things like, for example, have the characters interact with each other. But the characters didn't really interact with each other. They interacted with your character, but outside the story cutscenes, they didn't really have any, like, you know, there were like at least 3 opportunities in the game where they could have done like a hot springs party, you know, the classical Persona thing, and have everyone interact, and they didn't take it, which I thought was kind of weird. Or like an opportunity for them to have a celebration and for the characters to go and, you know, party with each other, and they don't. Everyone just kind of stays in their own corner and does their own thing. And that made it hard for me to connect with the characters when I didn't see them connecting with each other. A lot of them felt like they were just distilled to one character trait, and that was just kind of their thing. And I wish they had a little bit more to it than that. Hey Yoru, welcome to the stream. And Tomo, welcome in. Thank you so much for calling Kirby. I'm glad I'm not the only person that had troubles with the Metaphor story, but I know I'm definitely in the minority. But it really held me back from enjoying the experience as a whole. The battle system was fun. I love the battle system. SMT, push, turn battle system is always great for, like, strategy and stuff. Although I felt like at the beginning of the game, your options are really, really limited, and then towards the end, you have too many options. Especially with the way that you got experience for your job classes and stuff, felt a little bit like, oh, if you didn't plan ahead, or if you didn't know that the game was going to unlock this job class later on, then you were screwed because you wasted all your time in this job class and have your experience points in the wrong place. Part of that's also the strategy, but part of it's also just kind of like, I feel like they could have done it a bit better, personally. So, for me, Metaphor just didn't hit the mark. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate it. I still enjoyed it overall, but it definitely did not reach the same heights that other people put in for it, I feel. Me personally. Yeah, like it was a very hyped up game, and a lot of people really loved it. I like the idea behind it. I like the enemy design. But as a whole, just didn't quite hit it for me. Paper Mario 2 Remake came out this year. I totally forgot about that. I love Paper Mario 2. I think Paper Mario 2 is my favorite Mario RPG game, and it is such a fun, delightful game. And honestly, I don't really know if I want to put it in S or like A+. I think it was... The remake did such a good job. I didn't think this game could really attain more with the remake because it's a paper style, right? What can you do? But like the subtle differences they did to make everything stand out, they even like rearranged the entire like battle tracks, which they didn't have to do. They added extra content, extra bosses. Was really cool. I didn't think they had to do that, and they took the extra mile and they did it. Is it an S rank for me though? Did I enjoy it more than Spider-Man 1? I think is the real question. That's really hard to say, actually. It is one of my beloved games, for sure. I think I have to put it up here. Paper Mario 2 is just such a good, delightful game. And I think it's the peak of what we should be aiming for Mario RPGs. The story was fun, while being silly and not like overly complex, but still like hit a lot of really good like plot points for it and stuff. And the battle system actually has a lot of like, despite how simple it looks, has a lot of complexity and strategy to it. The bat system means that you can really play it your way if you want. So yeah, I think I feel right putting it in the S rank. Paper Mario 2 was a really fun game, I think. And the remake just really did it justice. We also played Paper Mario 1 this year to get ready for Paper Mario 2. Paper Mario 1 is an old game, N64, so of course it's not going to be as good. But it was a good start to the series, I think. But playing it again, you definitely realize the shortcomings of it. There's a lot of like back and forth. There's a lot of like parts where the puzzles weren't really as good. Also, we were playing it on the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass, and they capped the frame rate in that version of the game, so a couple of the boss fights lag really badly. And it becomes very hard for a game that relies so much on timing to get your timing correct when the game's like lagging the heck out. But it was the start of the series. So, you know what? I think I enjoyed this game less than Super Mario RPG Remake. But it was still good. I think I had to bump it down a little bit, though. Just for virtue of being an old game, I think. Does it go down to a B+, though? Maybe. You know what? I think I'll put it behind Metaphor. Still fun. Sets up for a lot of the stuff we enjoy in Paper Mario 2. But old game, a lot of things that they were still learning how to do properly at the time. It's also got a really, really straightforward narrative. You know, Bowser does something bad. You go beat up Bowser. End of story. It's only like later Mario RPG games that they start to do more exciting things with the story, at least. Or at least things that were a bit more interesting. Speaking of Mario RPGs, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. This is also one of my old favorite games of all time. Well, not of all time, but like of the Mario RPG series. Really paved the way for a lot of other Mario stuff going forward. And even playing it through the Nintendo Switch expansion pass, it still holds up really well. And I think I like it more than Super Mario RPG. In fact, you know, I'll bump it above... Should I bump it above? You know, I'll bump it above BlazBlue Continuum Shift, actually. That game was just fun. Good sense of humor. The puzzles were really good. Battle system's fun. Music's fantastic. I still think this is one of the better Mario & Luigi RPG games. Even going back to like the first version of Superstar Saga. Like, this wasn't even the 3DS remake. This was the original one. I still quite like it. Brothership. Mario & Luigi Brothership. So we played Superstar Saga because Brothership was coming out. And I actually really enjoyed Brothership. It was a good game, good successor. Nice to have a Mario & Luigi game after so long of not having one of these. Not enough boss fights, though. But the boss fights we did have were really good. Much longer game. They really, really stretched it out. Not to say it ever felt like it was, like, padded with content, but it is like a 45-hour game compared to most other Mario RPGs are like 20 hours, 25 hours tops. So at times it really did feel like there wasn't enough. Like a lot of the same stuff. Oh, same enemies again. Same battle strategy on this thing. Same puzzle. So I feel like they were trying to go for like a full-length RPG, but using the resources and stuff they had for a shorter RPG. So I think it was better than Super Mario RPG. Not as good as Superstar Saga. Do I put it above or below BlazBlue, though? I guess is the question. I'll put it above because the boss fights were actually really fun. Like the boss fights, some of them were like, oh, that was really tight. But I feel like I really prevailed, or I really went in with a good strategy, and I love that. I love it when you barely scrape by a boss fight by the skin of your teeth, and it's mostly just because you had a really good strategy that saved you at the last minute. Like that feels really good. I'm gonna put it here. It was a good game. Definitely had some drawbacks to it, but it's nice to see Mario and Luigi making a comeback. See, now we're getting to the games where it's like really hard for me. Oh, Granblue ReLink. I forgot that this game was this year. I kept thinking it was last year. This game was really fun. You guys know I love Granblue. Having a game that was an action Granblue game, but you can also play it with your friends, like that was big, I think. I think I have to put it up here. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think the story mode, I mean, was good. It wasn't like as epic of a story as some of the other RPGs I played, but it was good. Also, the boss fights were very cinematic. I will give it that. A lot of games we played this year had very cinematic boss fights, and that I put a lot of weight on that because they were very fun and the music was great. Playing them with friends, even more fun. It's just a little bit too bad that they stopped updating it and stopped giving us new characters. It was cool that we got a few waves of DLC with new characters and new boss fights, although a lot of the boss fights were just like, let's fight this boss that we fought before, but harder and more mechanics. And after a while, like farming for things was fun. Like, you know, when you farm something and you finally get that like one weapon you've been trying to get for the last couple hours, it feels really good and then you feel powerful. But after a while, the game was just a lot of farming, which granted, that is what Granblue is. But if you're not doing it with friends all the time, sometimes it's just kind of like, oh, it's more farming, right? I also wish that they had a few more characters in the game that you could play as to vary the playstyles. Because, yes, they had to stick to most of the main Grand Cypher crew and then popular characters, which means Granblue has so many interesting characters in its repertoire. You can see that even in just Granblue Versus. So it's a shame they didn't get a chance to really take advantage of that. I think it would have been cool to have more of that stuff. So, very solid game. Would love to see more updates or something in the future. Highly unlikely, but I think it sets the precedence for a lot of good things to come. Oh, Still Wakes the Deep. Horror game. Very interesting. Like a lot of horror games, kind of goes down to just being a walking simulator, but there are stealth sections. Cool monster design. Very good sound design. But because it is, at the end of the day, like a walking simulator, and once you figured out how to do the stealth sections, they weren't really that hard. Once you figured out, like, oh, the computer never checks in these areas that are assigned with the yellow paint, then you know to go there and you're safe, even if they're staring directly at you. For virtue of that, I need to put it near Layers of Fear, because it kind of does the same thing. I'm going to put it behind Layers of Fear, because Layers of Fear was also a horror game that was very much a walking simulator, but they actually did some cool things with, like, the camera angles and like the ways some of the scares were done were very, very smart in that game that Still Wakes the Deep didn't quite reach. But it was still a fun horror game, and for like a one-sitting game to complete, was very good. I like the idea of any horror games that has to do with the horror movie The Thing. I love the horror design of the monsters in The Thing. I do kind of wish it had a little bit more of like a who can you trust? Which human's actually a monster kind of thing, because that's kind of what The Thing was all about. And Still Wakes the Deep didn't quite do that. But the mystery was cool. The mystery of the monster was cool in that game. Okay, we're wearing down our choices now. Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2. I really enjoyed Silent Hill 2. I thought... I didn't think that I wouldn't enjoy it, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I did. That being said, you know, compared to other horror games, at the end of the day, the best thing about Silent Hill 2 was the story. The story was really good. I think the way they changed things for the remake, I think, was for the better. A lot of purists who like the original Silent Hill 2 might disagree, but I think the remake did everything better than the original one personally. That being said, it was still, like, the battle system was still just, you swing the pipe, you You pull out your gun, you watch your ammunition. Compared to Resident Evil, though, of course, it is a lot more survival because your ammunition and health items are a lot more limited, as opposed to Resident Evil, where it's like more action gamey. The game is dynamic, so it gives you more health drops and more ammunition drops as you go. While Silent Hill is just like, you get what you get, man. You gotta learn to use it wisely. So that added more to the horror part of it, but also made it more stressful at times. Some areas of the game were very large to the point where it was kind of like, oh, when are we getting to the end of this dungeon? So I enjoyed it, but it is definitely not like one of my favorite games ever. I think it did a great job with the sound design. I think the best thing about this was the sound design. Hearing the enemies from like being able to figure out where they are based on sound, being able to try to avoid them using your sound to get around them was actually pretty cool. Also, at the end of every Silent Hill 2 stream, I felt like very mentally drained. It was just very mentally taxing game. I think I have to put it down here. Still a good game, not something I would really go back to. Cool experience. I think this would be a great spot for it. A worthy game. Tekken 8. Tekken 8 was really fun. Again, I love fighting games. I really enjoy fighting games. But I'm not great at fighting games. This game was great. They did a great job with the story mode, very cinematic. The characters all look great. All the new outfits that they gave the characters were great. A lot of times when they move through fighting game franchises and characters get new outfits, I don't always agree with what the new changes are, and some characters don't always look as good, but I think almost everyone in 8 looks better. I do miss some of the characters they have yet to add in 8 as well, but we'll see as they continue to add DLC. Of course, we just got Clive in the game, which, you know, he looks great in the game and plays really well. They had Noctis in the last one. I think I'm going to put it here, but I'm going to put it below Granblue Versus. Granblue Versus just has such a good style to it. Arc System Works just does style so well. And characters and diversity of playstyles and designs from Granblue work really well with it. So I'll put Tekken 8 below Granblue Versus, but still a very, very solid game. Customizing was also fun. Customizing your characters is fun. The arcade quest was also surprisingly fun. I did not think I'd have so much fun doing the arcade quest, but it was good. Having your silly little chibi model going around, fighting computers who also dressed up their characters looking funny, getting better at the game. I do want to get better at Tekken one day, but I talked about this before. In the new year, I do want to practice Street Fighter, because Street Fighter is easier to get into than Tekken. Tekken is more technical of a fighting game than Street Fighter. So I think Street Fighter will be more suited to a learning fighting game player like me. I've never, even though I played so many fighting games, I've never actually really taken them seriously. I don't play online. I don't sit down and learn how to play a character for hours. I don't usually sit down and just, you know, repeatedly play the same game and the same thing for many, many, many hours. I like games where there's like a story and a progression and stuff like that too. But I do want to get good at fighting games. Like, nothing beats the rush of like getting better, feeling yourself get better, and just barely winning out over someone else who's really good. That's kind of how I feel about Marvel Rivals too. Every time I win a match, and I'm like, I'm getting better, or like, I did a really good play that time, feels really good. Thank goodness you're here. This game was so funny. I laughed so much during this game. This game was phenomenal. Very silly, but also like, the type of humor was like the kind of nonsense humor that takes you by surprise, but also kind of has some level of logic to it. It always just kept me guessing, and it was just so silly. I'm gonna put it here. I really enjoyed this game. Thank goodness you're here. It was really fun. I laughed just so much. If you haven't watched my playthrough of that game, you're in for a treat. I feel like there's another game I was gonna put near that one, but maybe I can't remember. Oh yeah, I was thinking about this too. Thank Goodness You're Here gave me similar vibes at times to Untitled Goose Game, and I put Untitled Goose Game back in the day in the special tier because I felt like it was kind of special because it's kind of a casual game. You kind of played at your own pace. It's kind of meant to be silly. So I kind of put it here because I felt like on the merits of what it wasn't really supposed to be like an epic, but it was very smart. And the more I think about it, I think it deserves to actually be in one of these tiers on its own. I'm going to put it above Thank Goodness You're Here, because while Thank Goodness You're Here, you have an objective, you have to figure out what it is, you do it. But in Untitled Goose Game, you have to figure out how to do the objective yourself. One of the ways I described Untitled Goose Game, which suddenly makes so much sense once I said it out loud, was it almost feels like you're playing a Hitman game. Except you're a goose and your tasks are not about assassinating people. They're just about, like, you know, silly things like opening a door or retrieving a trinket or something like that. But the way you approach it is the same. You can choose how to do it. And there's a variety of different ways the game gives you tools to go around it and do it. So I feel like it really deserves a tier up here. So I'm going to put Untitled Goose Game. I'm going to move it up from special tier into an A-. Speaking of silly games, DEEEER Simulator was just a lot of fun, nonsense fun. Strangely, for a game that was so nonsensical, the boss fights were very epic, with really epic music and really weird mechanics. Caught me by surprise there. Silly game, but again, unpolished, but it's purposefully unpolished. The controls are weird on purpose. It's supposed to feel a little frustrating to control. A lot of things in the game don't make sense. If there's too many things on screen, it starts to lag depending on what system you're playing it on. I was playing it on the Switch. You probably don't have that problem if you've played on the PC, but the PC didn't support my controller. There is a PlayStation version. I should have gotten the PlayStation version, to be honest. It was a fun time. I think I would put it down here, though. It was silly, but because it is unpolished, I have to put it here. But it was fun, and I did enjoy the boss fights. Very unexpected. Persona 3 Reload. We actually have not finished this game yet. There's so many games that came out this year that I had to prioritize some over others. And especially when it came to like all those back-to-back AAA releases. And Persona 3 was one I chose to put on the back burner because I've already played original Persona 3. So I didn't need to worry about spoilers as much. I still really like Persona 3. I think it's a great game. It's not my favorite Persona game, though. But I think it's still a really good game. I think it definitely goes in the A rank. It's just where does it go in the A rank? I think I enjoyed it more than... Personally, I think I enjoy it more than Vesperia, to be honest. I still really love Arise just because playing as Law was really fun. It gives you a different kind of satisfaction than playing a turn-based game. And I think it definitely deserves to be above Persona 5 Strikers. I really like Strikers, but because it is the spin-off, it does lack my favorite part of the Persona series, which is always the time management and the social links. So because of that, it has to be above here. But I do want to play Persona 4 and 5 on stream eventually, and those would definitely go in a higher tier. I think between 3, 4, and 5, I do still like 3, but I think 4 and 5 are fighting for like a top spot there, while 3 is like 3 built the foundation for them. 3 walked so the 4 and 5 could run. I would love for them to take 4 and do like a reload and remake it, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I would love to see that. Definitely modernizing the system, making it closer to what they did in 5, I think is great. Yeah, plus Persona 3 has Akihiko, and I really like Akihiko. He's my punchy boy. So, well, let's put that there. I am hesitant to start... I'm hesitant to play Persona 4 and 5 on stream just because they're so long. I don't have time for that yet. But we will one day. It's just... I have so many games I want to play on stream, and there's a lot of games that I want to play on stream that I've played before, and there's a lot of games that I want to play on stream that I've never played before, and I kind of want to prioritize the ones I've never played because they'd be completely new experiences to me, which might be more enjoyable than playing something I've already done before. But we'll see. We'll see. Where do we go from here? Mouthwashing. Mouthwashing was such an interesting game. The story in this game was really good. When I finished the game, I had so many things I wanted to say, and I ended up not saying them in the video, and then when I went back, I was like, oh dang, I wish I said this in the last video of Mouthwashing, or oh, I thought of another revelation I should have said here. Like, it was a game that the story left you thinking more afterwards. And I was reading some like interviews with the devs, and they put into perspective some of the other things that they want to put into the game for the themes of the story. And I was like, whoa, I didn't think about it that way. Or like, oh, they want to include that. That's why they did this. And it really made me appreciate it more. The fact that the story's non-linear too keeps you guessing about like the events, and it kind of keeps that mystery. Unfortunately, about Mouthwashing is a lot of it is walking simulator stuff, like a lot of horror games, but the few sections where you did have like stealth or actual gameplay were not that good. The game is retro looking on purpose, and because of that, a lot of the stealth sections were very rudimentary. It really felt sometimes frustrating, or sometimes like, this part is too long, and if I get caught, I'm going to be reset back like half an hour, and I get to do that all over again. And there doesn't seem to be much of an actual strategy to it other than just, you know, taking it slow or being lucky. And so Mouthwashing on the narrative sense, very, very good. On a gameplay sense, does kind of drag it down. And so I don't feel right putting it as high as I would like. So story-wise, you know, I think I want to put it here. Story, great. Gameplay, unfortunately, just drags it down, and this is a game tier list, right? A lot of these entries like get held back because there's a dissonance between how good the story is and how good the gameplay is. And this is one of those instances. Hey Wesley, welcome to the stream, and Juga, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well today. Happy New Year. I don't know, I feel like Mouthwash should go higher though, but yeah, it's just the gameplay really just holds it back. The nice thing is it's a short game, so even if you do get frustrated with something, it's going to be over quickly. But that is an unfortunate part about it. Unicorn Overlord. Unicorn Overlord was really fun, actually, for me. It really, what I kept saying is, it scratches my Fire Emblem itch, but in a new way. It scratches my Fire Emblem itch, but the way you think about the squadron building was really fun. Was it held back by its lack of budget and being rushed out? Yeah. Did it have a beautiful art style? Yeah. Was the story a little bit bland? Yeah. I think I have to put it above Fire Emblem Engage just because of how fresh it was for strategy. I would put it above the Final Fantasy VIIs. It was just, I would go to bed thinking about new strategies for that game. I would be like, I would recruit a new unit on stream, do a chapter, go to bed, and I'd be like, oh, I could use that unit with this character, and I could use this combo, and I could do this, and I could do this. How would it fare against this? Like, there was actually a lot of like strategy that would go through my brain about it even after I put the game down, and that's something special. That's something special. Again, it's just too bad there wasn't too much stuff to do after you beat it. There wasn't much post-game stuff. They definitely ran out of budget towards the end of the game, so the story kind of gets rushed towards the end, but the gameplay was just phenomenal. Art style, phenomenal. So I really enjoyed Unicorn Overlord. If you love Fire Emblem, please do give Unicorn Overlord a chance. There's even a demo for Unicorn Overlord, and it's quite long too. You can get almost like 8 to 10 hours of content from just the demo alone, if you just want to see if you enjoy it. Let's see. Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes. Kickstarter game, spiritual successor to Suikoden. It was a good game, but you could tell it was like more of an indie experience. There were things that in it that lacked a little bit of quality of life, kind of like almost like they tried too much to keep it harkening back to the old era of JRPGs without taking into account some of the newer things that made things a little bit easier on people, like loadouts. And there was quick travel, but you didn't get it until later. But at the beginning, it kind of feels like you need it. Some of the back and forth side questing, some of the hidden things are kind of like hidden away in a way that, like, if you didn't have a guide, you'd be looking forever for something. It was still fun though. Some of the boss fights, actually no, at the beginning of the game, the boss fights were a little bit tricky. But after about a third of the way through the game, suddenly the boss fights all became too easy once you figured out like the system and had enough characters. At the beginning, it was actually a little bit tricky because you were limited on your characters and you were still learning the game. But after a certain point, the boss fights became too easy. I think I'm going to put it behind Silent Hill 2. Good game, good try, lacks a little bit of polish, definitely something in it that is good that you have to find, held back by a couple little things here and there. We're still waiting for the DLC for this game to come out. It was supposed to come out in September, October, November, and then they kept delaying it, and now there's no word, so I do want to go back and play some of those DLC episodes that were promised, but at this point, I'm not sure if we're going to get them. We'll see. Hopefully. Leading up to that, we played Eiyuden Chronicles Rising, which is like a companion game prequel to it. This game wasn't that great. Honestly, this game was not that great. A lot of monotonous side questing, not really that much strategy to the... It was like a platformer game too, like an action platformer, not quite like an RPG, not quite like a turn-based thing. Characters weren't really that interesting. I feel like I almost had to put this into a B rank. It was just a lot of like side quests. A lot of like fetch quests all around. I think I'm gonna put it above Crisis Core, because I still didn't really enjoy Crisis Core that much. And for people wondering, I know people are gonna wonder this if they haven't watched my previous videos. I've played the Star Ocean games, and you'll notice Star Ocean 3 is like down here. And don't get me wrong, I love Star Ocean 3 when it came back in the day, and you might be wondering, Kira, why is it so low? We love Star Ocean 3. But having played it again recently, with updated like hardware and stuff, this game did not age very well. The battles are actually pretty rough. The battle system is really actually not that great when you go back to it in today's day and age. I think going back to it back then, playing it in like the 2000s, fantastic. Top of the game, one of the best RPGs of its era. But going back to it, it's like, battle system didn't quite make it. A little bit frustrating. That's why it's down there. I know people are going to ask about that. Resonance of Fate. What an interesting game. Weird game. Interesting battle system. Game does a horrible job of teaching you that battle system. Once you get it, very fun strategy game. Fun strategy. Really makes you think. Very stylish. Weird story. Weird characters. Is it a game I would recommend everyone? No. But is it a game I would recommend you watching and seeing if it might be your thing? Maybe. Maybe. I think I have to put it like here. Solid A-, right smack in the middle. Good game, fun, not for everyone, has its shortcomings, but what it does do, it shines well in. I'm glad a lot of people got introduced to this game or finally saw someone play it. A lot of people have seen these characters in crossover games and never knew anything about them, and now at least we introduce them to some more of that. But honestly, getting through a boss fight with some strategy feels really good. Like I said before, when you get through a boss fight with the skin of your teeth, and the only way you made it out was because you had a really solid strategy and like outwitted something, feels very good. Pokemon Colosseum. We've been playing that on Kieran's channel, so you won't find it on my channel. And in fact, they're not quite on Kieran's YouTube channel yet, but they will be. Now, I have to tell you guys, when I played Pokemon Colosseum as a kid, it was not what I expected. I thought it was going to be like Pokemon Stadium, and I didn't have an N64, so I never played Pokemon Stadium. I thought you were going to, like, you know, you pick out your dream Pokemon, you fight against your friends, you make your dream team. I thought that's what it was. And when I got it, I was very disappointed, because that's not what it was. It was a Pokemon game, but, you know, the fun of Pokemon is to get to catch all the Pokemon and do what you want and fight the gym leaders. And this game didn't have that because the Pokemon you can catch in this game are limited. There's no random encounters. You have to catch the Pokemon from other trainers using, like, the Shadow Pokemon mechanic, which means you're limited on which Pokemon to pick from. There were no gyms. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it. But after a few years after playing it, I really started to appreciate this game more. It does something different than the other Pokemon games. It puts a new spin on the formula. You play a Pokemon game, you're limited in which Pokemon you can catch, which means it formulates your strategy. And the bosses are not just element types, so you can't just go in and steamroll them using one element, or one Pokemon of a certain type. You actually need to have some strategy to it, and all the battles are double battles, and that's actually pretty cool. It's pretty fun. It's like a challenge run. Does it have its drawbacks? Of course. Some of the Pokemon you catch as Shadow Pokemon, frustrating to catch. Some of them, the RNG just doesn't work with you with a Pokeball. The Pokemon that you try to catch also use an attack called Shadow Rush, which also damages themselves. So when you try to catch them, they will slowly lower their own HP, so it becomes progressively harder to catch them until they faint themselves. Some Pokemon, if you don't catch them on the first try, you can't catch them again until the end of the game. So they're essentially like locked out from what you can get. Some Pokemon you keep retrying. It's almost like a Nuzlocke in some kinds of ways. So, and the music was really good. The music was good. This game is special, and if you're going into it knowing what to expect from it, then it's fine. If you go into it expecting something different and get something else, then I can see the disappointment. It is an RPG with limited Pokemon and strategy involved in double battle. So I think all in all, that's pretty fun. That being said, it is an old game. It is missing some quality of life features. I'm going to put it here. Yes, this feels right. I could put it here. I still enjoyed it. Replaying it with Kieran. We're still playing it too. We're going to play it again this week. If all goes according to schedule, or next week or whenever, and it'll be on his channel eventually. But I do enjoy it, and the fact that I'm playing it with a friend just elevates the experience, of course. The game is not multiplayer naturally. What we're doing is, since it's double battles, we each control one of the different Pokemon on our team, and that's actually kind of fun for like a couch co-op type of experience, long distance. Strider. We started 2024 with Strider because this game came out in 2014, so 10-year anniversary of it, and it's also a remake of an older game. Platformer, action platformer, features one of my favorite characters of all time, Strider Hiryu, who does not have enough games of his own. It was fun. It was an action platformer, so definitely like a lot of Metroidvania type of stuff, but lacking a little bit of quality of life. If you go back and try to collect all the collectibles like I did, some of those collectibles are dang difficult, and a couple of them require maneuvers that the game doesn't exactly teach you how to do. Like, I had to learn how to do like a special triple, quadruple jump, and the game didn't show me how to do it. I had to look up like videos online and figure out how people were able to reach this one seemingly unreachable item in the corner. So, fun game, but if you're trying to 100% it, definitely can get on your nerves. It is like an older style game, because it is like based on old action platformers of the past. Still fun, but I can't justify giving it like a super high score. I think I have to put it in the B+, unfortunately. I would put it below Mouthwashing, actually. But I still have a very soft spot for this game. I would love for them to come out with a new Strider Hiryu game and modernize it and make it better. Kind of like how like Ninja Gaiden's getting a new game, and it's also going to go back to its action platformer roots. And I would love to see that same treatment for Strider Hiryu. Or it'd be cool if they made like an action adventure game with him, kind of like they did with Ninja Gaiden Sigma. That'd be super cool. Because nowadays, we only see Strider Hiryu in like Marvel versus Capcom games or other crossover games, and that's unfortunate because he's a really cool character. Okay, we're getting there. Couple more. Pennyblood. Pennyblood Hellbound. Another companion game leading up to a game coming out next year, Pennyblood. Basically plays like Hades, but not as good. So I can see what they tried to do. I can see the vision. I can see what they're trying to do that sets them apart from Hades. But it is, at the end of the day, it is a roguelike, which is fun, but it's not for everyone. It's not like a generally like fantastic, blow you out of the water game. But it has enough that keeps you interested. Good art style, interesting characters. It is also very new and not very many people are playing it, so it was hard for me to find information about unlocking things. But once we got everything we needed, I think it was good. I'm going to put it above Carry On and below Deer Simulator. Okay, Hooked on You. We did this for April Fools. I was using Kieran's model. It's a dating game where you date the killers from Dead by Daylight. It is supposed to be silly. As someone who does not play Dead by Daylight, I think a lot of the references were lost on me. I feel like this has to go in special tier, just because it's kind of its own thing. It in and of itself was also an April Fool's joke game, so it's not really like an actual game, but they did put a lot of you know, they did a lot of nice artwork for it too, which is kind of cool. But I think it'd be unfair to compare it with other games here on the list. It's kind of like Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, April Fool's joke made into an actual game. Fun, but not like a game that everyone's going to say is their top game of all time. Also, because after a while, it felt like it was dragging out a little bit. There were times where it was kind of like, okay, too much talking, too much narrative stuff that isn't really interesting going on, or like weird humor that I didn't really quite catch on to, or like the type of humor where it's like, I know where the joke's going, but I just don't find it funny kind of thing. I don't know. Okay, another Code Recollection. This is a remake of 2 games, Trace Memory and its sequel, which never got localized in North America originally. So this is actually 2 games. Mystery game, puzzle game, geared more towards a younger demographic. So the story is a little bit more child-friendly, still some mystery to it. The puzzles are fun, but also, again, more child-friendly. I think I had to put it like somewhere lower A-. It's still a good game, but it's definitely not like something that's going to last with you forever. The other problem with this game is that there was actually a 3rd game planned for it that never came to light. And because of that, the 2nd game has some loose story threads that feel weird, because you're like, why didn't they ever resolve this? And that's because they planned to do it in the 3rd game and they never did. So as it stands now, the story feels a little bit incomplete at times, although they do come to a conclusion, but there's just some things that you just never find out or never really get explored in enough depth. I feel like that kind of brings it down to a B+ tier, actually. I'm going to put it below Pennyblood, Hellbound. Good on them for bringing it back, but it does have its shortcomings. Ooh, that is all our games for 2024, now sorted into our tier list along with all our other games we played on stream. I feel pretty confident about S and A+ tier. Like, these were all really good. I think when it comes down to like lower A- and upper B+ is where it starts to get iffy. I feel like that's kind of like where I'm not really quite sure, especially within the tier. But I think comparatively just between tiers, I think that's how I feel about these games. Thank you for the stretch, Lork. I appreciate it. And then as we get towards the bottom, we have our like demo-only games we didn't finish. We have our special games that are kind of judged on their own merits. We have all the party games, which are kind of their own thing because it depends on the company you keep. But yeah, 2024 was such a good year for games. There were so many games coming out. I think this is a year where I played the most number of new releases. Most of the time, I was just playing a game, trying to finish it before the next new release came out so I could get it finished, archived, and then have the next game and not worry about going back. You could see, because if you look at my videos, like FF7 Rebirth, Unicorn Overlord, Persona 3, you could see the order of the videos is like, I keep playing them, and then suddenly it's like, oh, there's a gap because another game came out, and then I go back to it later, and then there's a gap because another game came out, and I went back to it later. You can kind of see that I was trying to keep them on track, but also the releases were hard to keep up with. 2025 is looking good. I don't see that many games coming out in 2025 that I really want to play that will make the schedule really tight, which means I think we'll be able to go back and play a lot more games that are not new releases, and games that either I played before or not played before, and I'm looking forward to doing that as well. So, if you are watching this on Twitch, thank you so much for sticking by me and watching me talk about games. I enjoy talking about games. Hope you guys had a good 2024. Let me know what your favorite game was, and also what your favorite or what your favorite game was you enjoyed watching on the channel too, in the comments. I would enjoy that as well. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is going to be the end of the video, but if you're watching this live on Twitch, we're going to switch over and do a little bit of chatting, because there's some things I kind of wanted, because right now, like, our stream's only like an hour, 20 minutes long or whatever. I thought I'd take the time to do some talking and chatting with you guys, because we haven't done that in a while. So we're going to do a chatting session on Twitch, but if you're watching this on YouTube, it's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.